can process it. File now with care.
Good evening. We have with us in our studios for the next quarter hour Senator Stuart Symington of Missouri, who is here in Montgomery to address the annual Chamber of Commerce dinner later this evening. Mr. Symington, of course, is reported to be a very strong possibility as the Democratic presidential nominee later in the year. Mr. Symington served as Assistant Secretary of War for Air in 1946 and 1947. He was the first Secretary of the Air Force from 1947 to 1950. He's a member of the Armed Services, the Agriculture and Forestry, the Aeronautical and Space Sciences Committees. Senator Symington was Missouri's favorite son in the 1956 Democratic Convention. He's known for his persistent advocacy of a stronger defense program and a larger Air Force, and has been a chief critic of the administration's missile program. Senator Symington, our governor, John Patterson, had been scheduled to drop down and say hello to you during this period. However, he was hit, we understand, with an unexpected virus bug. How is your health this evening?
My health is fine, and I'm very glad to be here in Montgomery.
You flew in, of course, this afternoon. You said that your ears had been slightly plugged up by the plane trip. We hope that they're unplugged by now.
Oh, they're very much unplugged now.
Would you accept the vice presidency were it offered you?
I think that a senator has a more interesting job than a vice president. The vice president comes on the floor, and he never says anything unless there's a tie. That's the only time he can talk, except to deliver opinions with respect to parliamentary procedure. And as the late, great Senator Barkley, when once asked what the vice president thought about, he said mostly about the health of the president.
Would you accept your party's nomination for the presidency?
Oh, yes, of course I would.
What do you think of the possibilities of a party split at the convention, that is, the Southern Bloc actively walking out or in some other form opposing the National Party because of various differences in policies?
Well, I don't think there's much chance of that. We had that in '48 and didn't do anybody any good. And I think that our policies, the policies of the Democratic Party on the whole, are a great deal more the policies that the people of the South want than the policies of the Republican Party.
Well, how about the third party split, ditching both the Republican and the Democratic? And, you know, there's been quite a bit of talk amongst Southern leaders of getting their own third candidate, pooling the South's strength at the convention, and possibly going along neither the Democratic nor the Republican ticket that did not suit them.
You mean like in '48, having
Yes,
a third party? Well, I would hope they didn't do that. They did it in '48, and the Democratic president was still elected. And incidentally, he lost at least 2 states because of the candidacy of Henry Wallace, Mr. Wallace. He lost New York State, and he lost Connecticut to the Republicans, but I understand that was because of Mr. Wallace's strength, too.
You think, then, that even such strong differences between the South at the present time and the National Democratic Party as civil rights, segregation, integration, and Paul Butler can be reconciled?
Well, the Democrats have always been a party where we all have strong opinions. And I might say that there are a lot more issues that they disagree on than just the ones that you've mentioned in other sections beside the South. However, when it comes to the future of the United States, after my years in Washington, I've been there a long time now, counting my executive service, I'm convinced that it's very important for the future of the country that the Democratic Party again take over the leadership of the executive branch.
Here in the South, and particularly in Alabama, there are 2 areas of vital concern and controversy, civil rights legislation and the segregation integration struggle. What is your stand on a stronger civil rights legislation?
Well, I don't want to say in general about a future position in legislation. It's not my committee, and I will study any bill and listen to any debate incident to a bill. But in my state, we've proceeded with the problem of integration, where we have no problem at this time about it, and I believe that as an American, that when the courts make a decision, that I have to obey the law. I want to emphasize that I think Southern people are at least as law-abiding as people in any other part of the United States, and I think that the law should be observed.
That would include the adherence to federal enforcement of racial integration in public schools.
Is that the law now?
That, under your Constitution, of course, Supreme Court.
Well, I believe that once we start becoming a country where laws are ignored, that we run into grave dangers, because in my lifetime, many sad things have happened as a result of people putting themselves above the law. My father was a lawyer and a judge. Both my sons are lawyers. I apparently didn't have the brains to make it, and I wanted to get married, so I went to work very young, and I didn't study the law. But I'm one who believes in the importance of freedom under law. And I might add that I think the one chance for the world, the one chance to have peace in the world, which is what we all hope for more than anything else, is to persuade all people of every nationality of the importance of having some form of world law govern the world today as a result of our capacity now to destroy the world in an all-out nuclear war, destroy everybody on Earth.
You recently returned from a trip to the Far East and Africa, speaking of world affairs. How is the present picture in Africa, the surging nationalism and the current crisis, going to affect our nation, the United States, the average American citizen, do you feel?
Well, I went to Africa and the Middle East and Europe. Now, I didn't go to the Far East this time.
Well, I was particularly interested in Africa, and due to time, I believe, if you will, we'll stick to Africa and that problem as it might affect us here in this country.
The communists are making tremendous inroads in Africa. They're spending a lot more money, and of course they've trained a lot of people to go and work in these particular countries. In Africa, you've got over 750 tribes. Sometimes the presidents of these new countries have to talk to some of their constituents with an interpreter. And the Russians have even, not only do they talk French and English, which in the main are the two languages of Africa, but they also talk tribal languages, and they're putting in experts, mechanics, technicians. They're doing quite a job. I think we have to look at this very seriously, because we now are putting in billions of dollars into Africa and private investments all over those countries, and I wouldn't want to see them just taken away from it sometime, either through excess nationalism. As it is today, each service is allowed, in effect, to try to put itself in a position where it could fight any possible new war, which, God forbid, by itself. And that may be all right for the services, but it's mighty expensive to the taxpayer.
Do you think that our present peace and prosperity status is living on borrowed time, perhaps?
That depends. Of course, that decision, ultimately, in my opinion, will be made in the Kremlin. I don't think that, or Peking, I don't think the American people want to attack anybody. What we want more than anything else in the world is to live in peace, with a just and lasting peace and freedom under God. That's what every American in his heart wants. However, we don't want to give up and be slaves. And it's for that reason that I want us to be strong, not only physically, but economically and morally, technically, psychologically. Morally, I mean spiritually, so that we face up to this problem with the realism that our ancestors faced up to their problems, which has resulted in us being still a free people today.
Senator, in a recent article, Security with Solvency, you pointed to billions of dollars being squandered by the present administration. Do you feel that a Democratic administration could change this, or is it a combination of administration and a Democratic-controlled Congress?
No, I don't think so. I think one of the big fallacies around the country is that Republicans are cold-hearted people, but good businessmen. I found a lot more good Democratic businessmen in Washington than Republican businessmen.
Senator, I hate to break in. I've enjoyed this very much. Our time is up, and we appreciate very much your taking time out of a busy schedule to be with us this evening.
My pleasure to be with you.
We have been chatting with Senator Stuart Symington of Missouri, who is here in Montgomery this evening to address the annual dinner meeting of the Montgomery Chamber of Commerce. Thank you and good evening.
Stay tuned now for NBC News with Dave Brinkley and Chet Huntley on Channel 12, WSFA TV Montgomery, serving Auburn, as well as your hometown.